Welcome everyone to the Learn Your Ballot educational series. I'm Precious Ajuray. I'm a Houston native. I am the data committee chair for Community Action Collective, and I'm also co-founder and VP of Measure, and I'm so excited to be here with the awesome Dave Lewis.
Thank you, Precious. I appreciate all your hard work that you put into this. We decided this a week ago, and here we are today. So I ask that everybody bear with us as we get through the first episode, but it will be impactful. And we hope everybody takes some really, really good information away from this, but also some tools to help empower you. Again, I'm Dave Lewis, founder of Second Chance Life. I'm also co-founder of Community Action Collective. And Community Action Collective hasn't been around for a long time, but the group is made up of people that have been around doing this work for a long time. And what we are, Community Action Collective, is we're a group of everyday people that give a damn about our community. And what that also means, to take it even further, is that our group consists of constituents, residents, allies, organizers, activists, community leaders, and just everyday people that came together to address social justice issues. And one of our main issues that we came together to address is police reform. And in addition to police reform, policy changes around police reform, which are some of the things that we're seeing not only being discussed across the country, but also there's action being taken around police reforms. And I'm proud to say that Houston is finally moving in that direction. And yeah, it's a good week for those of us that have been in this fight for a long time and been looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of work to go, a lot of things to do, but this is just a start. So voting is another piece of ours, and not just voting. I think when you just vote and you're not informed, you're making powerless decisions. And so our goal is to empower you and to encourage you to make informed decisions about your voting. Like, why are you voting? Voting matters, and I think it matters more when you're informed than when you're empowered. So I'm excited to go through this series of Precious. Before we get started, Precious and I were talking about this offline earlier, and we were talking about our first time voting and why we voted, what motivated us to vote, and what that felt like. And we didn't get through it because we want to save it for this. So Precious, I'll let you go first.
Right. Yeah. I thought it would be really helpful just to connect with everyone that's tuning in on their voting experience. I know that I definitely went to the voting polls not knowing who was on the ballot and just did the straight ticket voting. I was voting all Democratic. And just me being more seeking the knowledge and wanting to be more aware of who's really in leadership in my community as I get older and knowing how it's impacted. I'm sitting here just trying to listen to see who's doing the actual work, and just really understanding and valuing my vote, where I'm like, I really want to be able to spread this same energy with everyone else when it comes to voting. Because I know everyone has that stigma. And I was talking to a best friend and she said, this is going to be her first time voting ever. I'm like, she's been 18 for 12 years. And so she wasn't inclined to vote. Even with Obama, she didn't think her vote counted. So there's a lot of people out there that think that way. And we really have to show out in the polls. So we're really hoping this series can be able to build that awareness and increase the voters. So what was your first experience like, Dave?
It was Obama's first term. I decided to vote. I, like you, like many other people, especially people in the African-American community, I grew up not seeing anyone that looked like me on TV when it came to politics. No one that looked like me in my community. I grew up in a community where the entire ballot was Republican. And I grew up in a community where my family did vote, but they were also voting against their own interests, which innocently, they were just uninformed. Like, people haven't taken the time to educate themselves on their vote, and they haven't really been motivated to vote. If you think about the election today, the two candidates that are running for president, the main thing that I think is missing is how do you reach out to the people that are either undecided if they want to vote, or the people that have just said, I'm not voting at all. This is ridiculous. And so there have to be reasons for people to vote. And I hope people take away from this series that we're doing that there are reasons for you to vote. There are things on the ballot that matter to you. And that's local things. Like, even if you don't think about, or you don't care about the federal vote and that level, and you don't have a connection to that, there are things in your community that affect you on a daily basis. And
You hit it right on the nail. Like, that was the whole intention of the series, because people are understanding. I know everyone's talking about the president, but we have all these people locally that make decisions for us every single day. So sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to, that's like the main point here is like, there's over, how many candidates are on the ballot this year?
And just in Houston, Harris County alone, it's over 100.
Yeah. So if you haven't already, we did the slideshow. Please download Ballotpedia. It's an app where you can basically save your sample ballot. And so as we're taking notes, you can start starring the people that you're interested in or that you want to do a little more research on. It's a very easy, user-friendly tool that you can be able to use. So Ballotpedia is that app to download.
Right. And I want to plug our social media sites, our webpage. You guys, again, we're Community Action Collective. That's our domain. Our Instagram is CAC Houston. You guys can find all this information on there as well. And our Facebook is Community Action Collective. Our Twitter is CAC Houston. So make sure you guys follow us, not only just for this series, but also to just stay abreast and informed on some of the things we're doing. And also, if you guys want to join in and participate with us in Community Action Collective, we're always open. We're an organization that, as long as you're ready to do the work, we receive you with open arms. So I'm excited about today. Press, you ready to get started?
Yes, let's dive in. So today's topic, we're going to focus on the civil courts, criminal courts, the Harris County attorney, as well as our district attorney. So those four main sections or positions that's on the ballot are the ones we're going to focus on today. And so our intentions are to let you know what their job is, what they're responsible for, what decisions they make, how they influence your day-to-day life, and then give you some insightful data and just information about who's on the ballot, and let you know where you can find more insight to be able to really have a more well-informed vote. And I can definitely say through our research, it's so sad that we have to dig for this information, but we've done the work for you to where now you're like, okay, let me just go here, learn a little bit more, and make my decision. So I think we're going to kick off with civil courts.
Absolutely.
So what is the whole purpose of the civil court?
So civil courts is typically the court that, I would say 80% of the, I wouldn't even say crimes, they're not even crimes that are committed, but the cases typically end up in civil courts where one person either files a suit or there's a case against another person for a dispute or a problem between them. This can also be businesses or agencies that file cases in the civil courts or different lawsuits, or there's a person that has filed a lawsuit against a person in the civil courts.
Okay, so we're talking about anything dealing with like housing or family, kids, unemployment. All of those types of cases is what takes place in the civil court. Right.
And in the civil courts, you have, ultimately in the civil courts, those cases, I would say 90% of those cases are either settled or dismissed. They never make it to trial. Like, these are not cases that you're going to see going anywhere. And most of these cases, the judge is typically the ultimate decision maker in these cases. So if you're going into court and say you sue someone that you had a car accident and you're suing the person, the judge is going to decide whether you're the plaintiff or the defendant. If you are the plaintiff, the judge is going to decide if you're going to be awarded an amount of money, or the judge may decide to dismiss the case if he doesn't see any need to award anybody anything. That also holds true in family court, where there's a dispute between family members. Say there's a child custody case or a child support case. The judge may decide to have shared custody. The judge may decide to have the kid go with one parent or the other. The judge also may decide that you guys are just, we're going to send the child to foster care. You know, that's one of the worst case scenarios. So it can go either way with that. Go ahead, Precious.
So a lot of the civil court cases, those are like very personal cases. So the judges that are in those seats need to be someone that is, empathetic, that, really understands the struggles of the common people, and that really allow both sides to be heard. So whenever you are looking, we're going to go through some of the people that are on the ballot, but looking at the true character, of course, we want anybody in leadership to have a true character, but in the civil courts, people that have the authority to approve your unemployment, for you to win your case if you're in an accident, or to, dealing with your family, like those are really big life-changing decisions. And so definitely we want to have someone that has that track record of, just being a genuine good person, right? So I think we got a few data points we want to share. In our research, we found that there's 26 judges total, which is a lot. There's 26 judges total in Harris County. And of that 26, over half of them are female. I think it's about 15 female judges, and then 8 of them are Black females. And I think right now there's no Black male judges at all, I believe.
Right. That is correct.
Yeah, I think, Dave, you're going to tap into, I think you already talked about the civil cases and how most of them are just settled or dismissed.
Yeah, I think I said 90%, but I think it's 90. Is it 97?
97%.
So it's higher than what I estimated. And that alone, like, it speaks to having a judge that is a true judge for the people, and someone that sits in those seats that are not biased, because they do have power to make decisions that ultimately can affect your livelihood. They can affect whether you see your child or not. Like, all these things matter. And again, like, Ballotpedia is a great place to go. We keep plugging that because that is a phenomenal resource. And even a questionnaire that they have for candidates, it's a very, very good questionnaire that it has a lot of really, really good questions that can tell you a lot about the candidate. Now, whether the candidate chose to fill it out or not, it's not always the case. Like, there's not a high ratio of them filling it out, but that also says a lot about the candidate. And also if their website has been updated, so we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, absolutely, Precious.
Yeah, so who's on the ballot right now for Harris County for the civil court judge?
So you have an incumbent, that's Leslie Briones. That's a Democratic candidate that was in that seat, that's already been sitting in that seat. And then you have Clyde Luchtag. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And you can find the website is Judge Clyde for the Republican candidate, judgeclyde.com. And then you also can look up Leslie Briones. That's the incumbent that's already in the seat. And it's Leslie Briones. That's Leslie is spelled Lesley. Briones is BRIONES.com. And then
I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat too, so people can have that.
Got it. And then Judge Clyde, for those that are not on here, it's JUDGE. So Judge Clyde, CLYDE.com to look him up. But also, you can also find more information about them on Ballotpedia. And also keep in mind that if they haven't updated their website, if their website doesn't say much about them, about their work, what they stand for, what they value, what their role is in that seat, and what their plans are, like, I would really, really consider if this is someone that I want to give my vote to. You don't want to just give your vote away just because this person is a Democrat or Republican. And also, if you have an opportunity to run across them, or you see some ads or something, or if this person shows up at your church, like, go look at their Ballotpedia, go look at their website, and ask some really hard questions. Ask the questions that you want to know, because there may be a chance that you end up in some of these courtrooms for anything. I mean, we live in a litigious time where people will sue you for anything. And a lot of these cases are civil cases that come across these judges. So you do.
I never thought about that. We should have friends that are civil court judges. Like, that would be a really good friend to have.
I have some.
Well, clearly I got to do some more now. Let me pull up to their office. Okay, cool. So are there any for the civil court. We're going to move on to criminal court. If there's not any questions, we'll keep it rolling. We want to keep this a short, 30-minute segment. We want to be conscious of you all's time. We'll be back here again tomorrow at 6:45, and we're also going to be releasing this footage so that we can still share this information for those that couldn't tune in live.
Is there anybody that has any questions before we move on? Anything you want to know? Going once, going twice.
Going twice.
Moving on.
All right. So we're down to the criminal courts. So the purpose of the criminal courts is exactly what it says. This is where the government files a case against someone for committing a crime. So what's the definition of a crime? Like, what are some true crimes? Can you give us some examples?
So a crime is any of the things that we didn't mention earlier. So a crime could be DWI is considered a crime. Shoplifting is considered a crime. Murder is considered a crime. Sexual assault is considered a crime. Assault is considered a crime. Almost everything is considered a crime in this country. If you get caught with methamphetamine drugs, if you get caught with prescription drugs that are not yours, that's also considered a crime in this state per se. I can't say everywhere in this country, but most things are criminalized in this country. Trespassing can be another thing.
Thinking of things that like shouldn't even be considered crimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they consider a crime if you're putting someone else in harm. Is that part of the definition as well?
That's basically it. If you're putting someone else in harm, can be considered a crime. So a lot of the other things are not really considered crimes if they're not. They have to do with property, your home, your family, but not any type of endangerment that's considered a crime.
Okay. So the powers of someone or a judge in a criminal court, they have the power to either give you jail or prison time, put on probation, or giving you a fine. So this is essentially the person that's giving you your punishment for your crime. And I know this is a heavy topic, and you listed a whole bunch of different crimes. And so there's so many different layers. Any data that we have right now on the criminal courts for Harris County?
So right now, the data shows, and this is just based on our research that we saw on, I think it's harriscounty.gov is a website that we looked. But right now it shows that in the criminal courts, so there's 37 judges in the criminal courts. And then just to kind of break this down into, from a demographic standpoint, so as Black criminal court judges, we have 6. So there's 6 Black men in those courts. And then there's 10 women, 10 Black women. So 6 Black men, 10 Black women, and the rest are
20. I think that's 20 left.
21 left that are either white women or white men. And I think there is one Asian judge that's in that mix. So that kind of shows the demographic. And one point to make out of this too is also that there was 19 African-American female judges that are still in their seats from the 2016 election throughout Harris County. So you guys can kind of go look up each one of those judges, but most of those judges are between the criminal courts and the civil courts on that. So are we going to talk about the candidates next?
Yeah, we're just going to hop into the ballot. Right now, there's 2, races happening right now. 2 candidate positions. One is for the number 1 court in the number 1 criminal court, and then number 4. And so for number 1, we have Darrell William Jordan, who's a Democrat. And then we have his running mate is Bill Harmon, who's a Republican. So yeah, do you have any, I think, you did have some stories to share about.
So the incumbent is Darrell Jordan. This is the presiding judge, Harris County presiding judge for the misdemeanor courts. And just to note, we're nonpartisan. We're a nonpartisan organization. So our information we give here is just facts. We're not in support of any candidates. But one thing we do like to highlight some of the work that the judges have done and also some of the work that they haven't done. But Judge Jordan took his seat in 2016. He's one of the only judges in the history of Texas that has sided with the plaintiff and gone against his colleagues to sue the state of Texas in bail reform. And what bail reform proved was that bail, the way bail system has been set up in this country is unconstitutional. It violates the Eighth Amendment, which states that excessive bail amounts are illegal. That's against the Constitution. And so they won that. And so we now have seen bail reform in a positive way shape Harris County in the misdemeanor courts. They just released a report on that last week, I think, and it showed the 6-month results of that as well. We did some research on his opponent, Mr. Harmon, and we didn't find a lot of information on Mr. Harmon. I think he has a website, but we weren't able to pull up a whole lot of information on him. I think he's currently a judge now, and we didn't have a lot of information on him. But again, like Ballotpedia is a great place to go find some information on Mr. Harmon and also Mr. Jordan as well. So you guys can make some informed.
Ballotpedia will show you how they did in the primary elections. And then there's been buzzing news about Houston being a Republican city, yet based on the research we're finding, Democrats are showing up way more at the polls than Republicans are. So that was very insightful to learn that too, because Bill got 100% of the Republican vote, but I believe it was still 50,000 shy of the Democratic votes that Daryl got. And so the other judge that's running is Genesis Draper. She's a Democrat. She's running for she's currently the incumbent for the criminal courts. And then her running mate is Linda Garcia, who is a Republican. And Genesis actually, she was appointed judge after the Judge Cassandra Holman. She became ill and has been sent to heaven, and so Genesis has taken that seat. And so I saw that, I think that was a press release, and press can always be skewed, so we're not going to give you any type of press links, but did see that it was a priority to continue her legacy within taking that seat. What information do we have about Linda Garcia? I don't think her stated.
Yeah, not a lot. And then you guys will see by doing your research that a lot of these candidates, even their actual campaign website has not been updated. You won't find a lot of information on there. So it's also important too, if you ever get an opportunity to talk to these candidates, to ask them those questions, like, why is it so hard to find information on you? Why is it so hard to find you on the platform? And you guys will also see who endorses them. So a lot of these candidates ride off the names of people that are already in their seats. They ride off the names of these legacy politicians that exist in these communities. You guys will see some big names behind some of these candidates, and you wonder why their website's not updated, because they think that
they're like, why do I have to do that?
Yeah. So they think the name recognition and all these things will continue to get them elected and reelected, and it's a new day. Like, we are no longer giving away our votes. We're no longer just voting for you because of what you did 60 years ago. It's a new day. The world has changed. We are more informed. We're going to do our best to make sure that everybody else is informed, and then take the lead. Like, this is your life. We're at a pivotal time in history, and they say that every time an election comes up, and it is. Every time we have an election, it is one of the most important times in history, because we have now. Like, this is now. We have today. We can't go back and change anything that happened in the past, but voting does change things, and it gives us an opportunity to hold these people accountable. And if they don't do what they say they're going to do, get them out of there.
Out of there. All right, cool. This is great. We're swiftly moving on. Next is the Harris County attorney. So Dave, go ahead and let us know what's the purpose of the Harris County attorney?
So basically, the purpose of the Harris County attorney is to represent all of the different agencies in Harris County. Like they are representatives for animal protections. They're representatives for the city of Houston. Like this attorney represents all of the different agencies that exist within our city to protect them. And that's basically what the role is in a nutshell, without going into too much details on that.
Okay, so we're talking about the hospital districts, the flood district, the appraisal review board, which I think that's a big one, the emergency network. So when we say if they're the Harris County attorney, what type of cases would they be representing, I guess? Or in what scenario?
So if someone filed a suit against the city, if they filed a suit against any of those agencies, if there are issues with those agencies, this is the representative. Like this is the person that's representing the city or the Harris County per se from an attorney standpoint. It's a big role. It's a very big job.
Okay, so let's get into who's currently on the ballot. So we have Christian Deshaun Menifee. He's a Democrat. He holds the current seat, correct?
Yes.
And then we have John Nation, who's his running mate. He's a Republican. And yeah, do you have any stories or any insights to share about Christian?
I don't. I have not. Again,
I can look up his issues some of the things that he is passionate about or that he's putting a lot of emphasis in. Because I know he did win the primaries. So right now he's currently in the lead. But his primary issues were voter rights, law enforcement reform, protecting local control, bail reform, protecting communities against scams and fraud, fight environmental hazards, set a standard of equal pay or equal work, protect all children in Harris County. Those were his main issues. So I'll go ahead and drop his website. His website has been updated with his information. And then I think for John Nation, I don't think his website had been updated, actually.
He didn't. John Nation didn't have any updates. I looked that up. And I think his is johnnation.com. Is that what it is? I think it's John Nation. Or 2020 Nation. Is it 2020?
Nation2020.com. Nation2020.com is where you can get more info on John Nation. I think the main thing he was pushing is city structure, I think was the overall theme. So yeah, definitely check out his website to learn more about what he values.
Got it. And the next position that's on the ballot is a super, 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 super important position.
Big one.
The DA, which is the district attorney. So that's a huge race and an important one. And the reason that's important is because they represent the state of Texas, our criminal cases in Harris County.
What does that exactly mean? So that means if Harris County commits a crime?
If we commit crimes, like if the residents commit crimes, citizens commit crimes.
Citizens commit crimes.
Mm-hmm. And so the DA's job is in the criminal courts and in all the inferior courts of the county. Like they represent the state of Texas in those cases. When there's cases being brought against Harris County, the DA steps in and decides whether there's charges to be filed. They decide whether they'll be dismissed. They'll decide which charges to present.
Where does the crossover happen with the criminal court judges and the DA? Is there a relationship there?
Well, say that one more time.
With the criminal court judges that we highlighted before, do they ever work with the DA? Like, how do you differentiate if you're going to be seen with the DA or with just a regular criminal judge, like a Harris County judge?
Well, what the DA does, the DA's role in all of this is to decide whether charges are to be filed. That's really what it's about. Like the DA decides if you do commit a crime, do we pursue charges on the crime or do we not? And so this is typically why you don't see police officers being prosecuted when they commit crimes. You typically don't see any police officers getting fired. It takes a lot for police officers to get fired because a lot of times, and we'll talk about this later, but the DA was probably once a police officer. The DA is a head prosecutor. So it's basically that you have the police policing the police in these situations. So don't want to just reference the police, but the DA holds a lot of power when it comes to charges, like deciding charges. The DA is also the person that police call when there has been a crime committed. The DA has to decide whether you go to jail or not, whether that's a jailable offense or not. They tell the officers to arrest you or not in Harris County. They have that much power in Harris County. So it's not just the officer. The officer has to get the approval from the DA before they arrest you on that. And then once they do arrest you and you go to jail, you bail out, the DA still has to decide what your charges are, if you'll be charged or not.
So who do we have on the ballot right now? I see we have Kim Ogg. She's been in the position for 3 years now. And then we also have Mary Nan Huffman. So Kim Ogg is a Democrat and Mary Nan Huffman is a Republican. Any data or anything you found?
Both of the candidates have been DAs before. I know Kim Ogg is the incumbent, and the Republican that's running against her was a DA in another city. Kim Ogg has ran her platform, and if you go look at her website, and you look,
she has 2 websites, so I'll give you the most current one.
You can kind of find some information on the things that she's running on, what matters. Her campaign before she ran on criminal justice reform, and one of the programs that she's implementing in the city was the marijuana diversion program. And we have no idea how successful that program is because we can't find any data on it. And those things matter. I can't sit here and say it doesn't, because if we're rolling out programs like that, there has to be data to show whether the program is working or it's not. Or if not, it's just another thing that you want to run off on your campaign for people that are not informed voters. So those things are important. And if it is working, we want to know on that. So those are some of the questions that we have for Kim Ogg. But also there's questions for the opponent. What are some of the things you want to change in this city when it comes to the criminal justice system? Do you want to change anything? Are you pro-police? Kim Ogg, we've seen several times where she ran a platform on bail reform, but then she's against bail reform. She's been against it. We've seen her speak out against it several times. So we have seen candidates switch up their things that are important to them when they do get in office, which is dangerous. So just keep all these things in mind when you're doing research. And these are all things that you guys can look up on your own. So we're not here to bash candidates or anything, but also just to give you guys facts when you're some things to think about when you're looking at these candidates.
Yes, and if you go to Ballotpedia, you can be able to find some more research on Mary Nan Huffman. She does have an updated website. I'm checking it out right now, and I think her main, it's interesting. As we've been doing our research, the issues that they're, for, it's not as apparent as you would think. It's a lot of like general bios, who they're endorsed by, donate. That's really, a lot of the websites tend to have that pattern and feel. So,
and again, not to cut you off, Pressure, but again, like just look at who they're endorsed by and look those people up and see if those are people that not only do you share the same values, but what have those people done per se in their role? Like, what are some of the things they've accomplished? What are some of the things they've accomplished lately? And if they're supporting these candidates, why? Why are they supporting these candidates? So think about those things when you're out there voting and becoming an informed voter. Like, this stuff does take work, but it's necessary. Like, don't give your vote away. We have to stop giving our vote away. Early voting is necessary. You guys just saw the day where Greg Abbott has closed down 11 facilities in one, and we're the largest county in this state. And he's closed down 11 mail-in ballot facilities where you can drop your ballots off, the mail-in ballots. He closed down 11 of those. So all the voter suppression stuff has started. So make sure you guys, if you have to, go in person, do what you have to do, but make sure you're registered, make sure you get your people registered, but also make sure they're educated, and they're not educated. Make sure you take the time to educate them. Real quick before we go, Precious, what's the main reason you're voting this season? What's your top three things?
So the main reason I'm voting is, one, to just be a community leader and to, be a role model. That's number one. Number two is to really, understand the system that I exist in and that affects my community. And so I know that my vote counts, and just being able to see in other cities how the lack of participation, what that ends up being like years on, and the damage it creates. And so I'm just really focused on being a forward thinker and just thinking about the next generation. And so, as you get older, you just realize what's really important, right? And so, and then just to say, like, I'm very active on social media, and I've dedicated my platform to solely pushing this message out and voter awareness. So I definitely take it seriously.
Right on. I think all those are really good points and things that I share too. And my main reason is because I understand, like you said, the power of voting. Like I really do understand it. And I think it's a right, and I think it's a right that people should exercise, but they don't have to. So I think it's huge for me. Second is I want to keep some people in their seat that are in their seat, and I want to get some people out of their seat that are not in their seat, or that are sitting in the seat. And third, like you said, I think we're moving in a direction as a country and as a world. Like the world has spoken on like ending racism. Like I believe we can end racism, and I believe there's enough people now, not waiting or not even in the future, but I believe now there's enough people that have said like this is enough. Like whether they're Republican, Democrat, 45 has supporters, but they're not. His supporters are not the Republican Party. That's not the whole party. Like it's a different group of people that support that man. And he's not the only reason that I'm voting, not even the main reason I'm voting, because I believe in local power. But I'm excited about it. I appreciate it. Thank you, Precious, for being an just an awesome contributor to everything we do, putting this together. We've done it in a week. She's phenomenal. So I got to take my hats off to her, because we all pulled in a bunch of different directions, but to pull this off has been phenomenal. So thank you.
And thank you, the community, for showing up.
Yeah,
and your gratitude. So definitely hope this was some really helpful information that's really going to help you have a more well-informed vote. So I think we're wrapping up our first episode.
That is it. And again, we're Community Action Collective. If you want to get involved, follow us on all of our platforms, CAC Houston or Community Action Collective. And we will see y'all in our next series.